When I arrived, I felt excited and reassured by the quiet, cool surroundings. The house looked beautiful with its vintage architecture, and all the rooms were warmly decorated, giving the impression that I had stepped into a different era. However, as I approached the front door, a strange feeling washed over me. The door was wide open, which made me feel uneasy. At first, I thought maybe the host had forgotten to close it or something had gone wrong. But when I checked my phone, I discovered that no one had been there before me, and no other guests were scheduled during this time. Despite feeling a little anxious, I decided to go inside and check things out. As soon as I stepped through the door, I noticed an odd smell. This wasn't the typical scent of an old house, but rather a strong chemical odor. The smell made me uncomfortable and restless, especially since the host had assured me everything in the house had been thoroughly prepared. Curious and somewhat fearful, I decided to explore further. The chemical smell grew stronger as I made my way toward the kitchen, and something about the atmosphere made me feel even more uneasy. When I heard a faint sound coming from the basement, I felt a strong urge to investigate, even though I had a growing sense of dread. As I descended the stairs, I was shocked to discover a hidden laboratory. Chemical equipment and people in hazmat suits were busy working, and I could hardly believe what I was seeing. From that moment on, everything changed. It was no longer a peaceful retreat, but a confrontation with unimaginable danger. As I ran up the stairs toward the front door, I felt as though an invisible force was pulling me back. Everything around me seemed to slow down. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I knew I couldn't waste another second. However, as I neared the door, I was stopped by a large man standing directly in my way. His cold, hateful gaze made it clear that he knew I had witnessed something I wasn't supposed to see. Although my hands were trembling with fear, I tried to stay calm and told him that I was lost and sorry for entering the wrong house. However, my words didn't soften him. He held me firmly and didn't give me a chance to explain further. Immediately, his large hand gripped my wrist like a vice, dragging me toward the basement where I had seen the horrifying scene earlier. The strength he had was overwhelming, and in my desperation, I could only struggle to free myself. But all my efforts were in vain. I was being pulled like a puppet, unable to defend myself. In that moment, I knew I had to find a way to escape, no matter what, and without thinking, I bit into his hand with all my might. The sharp bite made him scream in pain, and that was the only opportunity I had to break free. He immediately loosened his grip, and I dashed up the stairs, not daring to look back. When I reached the door, my legs wobbled, and the ground beneath me seemed to shake. Once I reached the parking lot, I had no time to calm down. I jumped into my car, not checking to see if anyone was chasing me. One thought raced through my mind. I had to get out of that house immediately. I hurriedly called the police, informing them of what I had witnessed, hoping that help would arrive in time. But in my mind, one question kept echoing. Was this house really just a vacation spot? Or were there secrets I was never meant to uncover? As I rushed up the stairs toward the front door, I felt as though an invisible force was pulling me back. Everything around me seemed to slow down, my heart pounding in my chest, and I knew I couldn't waste another second. However, as I neared the door, I was blocked by a large man standing directly in my way. His cold, hateful eyes seemed to know that I had seen something I wasn't supposed to. Despite my trembling hands from fear, I tried to stay calm and told him I was lost and apologized for entering the wrong house. However, my words did nothing to soften him. He held me firmly, not giving me a chance to explain further. Immediately, his large hand gripped my wrist like a vice, pulling me down to the basement where I had seen the horrifying scene earlier. I could feel the immense strength he had, and in my desperation, I could only struggle to free myself. But all my efforts were in vain. I was dragged along like a puppet, unable to defend myself. In that moment, I knew I had to find a way to escape, no matter the cost. Without thinking, I bit into his hand with all my might, delivering a sharp bite that made him scream in pain. That was the only opportunity I had to break free. He immediately loosened his grip, and I darted up the stairs, not daring to look back. As I burst through the door, my legs wobbled, and the ground beneath me seemed to shake. Once I reached the parking lot, I didn't have time to collect myself. I jumped into my car, not checking to see if anyone was chasing me. Only one thought was running through my mind. I had to get out of that house immediately. I hurriedly called the police and informed them of what I had witnessed, hoping that help would arrive in time. But in my mind, one question kept echoing. Was this house really just a vacation spot, or were there secrets I was never meant to uncover? After I called the police and explained everything that had happened, they quickly sent a team to inspect the house. The feeling of confusion and fear still hadn't left me. As I sat at a nearby gas station, my hands trembling uncontrollably, I couldn't fathom the scene I had just experienced: a seemingly normal house hiding a secret drug lab, with men in hazmat suits working with dangerous chemicals. The police confirmed that the house was the center of a large drug network, and those inside were arrested. What I had accidentally discovered helped dismantle a dangerous criminal operation. Once everything calmed down, I received an apology from Airbnb, and they offered compensation for the losses I had suffered. However, no amount of money or apology could ease my mind. That house, which I once thought was a peaceful retreat, now only remained in my memory as an inescapable nightmare. Not only because of the horrifying things I had witnessed, but also because I realized that dangers can come from the places we least expect, those that seem the safest. I decided to leave the city, never to return to that house again. Although I had escaped danger, I still couldn't shake the sense of unease, knowing that sometimes the secrets we unknowingly uncover can change our lives forever. Even after the police had resolved the situation and the criminals were arrested, I could not forget what had happened in that house. Even though I had left, the memories of the strange images and the overwhelming fear still haunted me whenever I thought back. Airbnb contacted me to apologize and offer compensation for the damages I had suffered. But the apology and money could not fill the confusion and violation I had felt. I realized that sometimes the places we think are the safest, the ones we simply believe to be a peaceful getaway, can hide secrets and dangers we never expected. My accidental discovery of the drug lab in that house helped the police break up a major criminal network, but it also made me rethink my safety on future trips. The sense of unease began to creep into my mind, making me unwilling to return to that house, even to collect the belongings I had left behind. I also realized that I had put too much trust in the images the house was advertised with, forgetting that behind those beautiful pictures, there could be a completely different reality. After the incident, I decided I would never use Airbnb again. I moved to another city, started a new life, and gradually tried to forget that nightmare. But every time I remembered, a shiver ran down my spine. The images of people in hazmat suits in the lab and their cold, menacing gazes still couldn't fade from my mind. Even though I had found a new, safer place, I couldn't shake the feeling that sometimes what seemed like a simple trip could lead us to dark and dangerous places that we could never foresee. Since the terrifying incident, I could not forget the feeling of confusion and fear. even though I had left that house and moved to a different city to start a new life. The memories of what I had gone through still followed me like a shadow. Every time I thought of that house, I felt a shiver, recalling the frightening scenes in the lab with people in hazmat suits working with dangerous chemicals. Although I had escaped that danger, I could not shake the feeling of unease when thinking about how a house I thought was safe could harbor such dark secrets. Not long after, I received a notification from Airbnb that another guest had gone missing after staying at that house, which only increased my doubts and worries. Hearing about the disappearance of a girl who had rented the house made me connect the dots between her story and mine. Perhaps the house was not only a hideout for criminals, but also a dangerous place for anyone who accidentally stepped inside. The feeling of insecurity and suspicion made it impossible for me to continue using Airbnb. I decided from then on I would only choose reputable hotels where I could feel safer, instead of risking staying in houses that might harbor unforeseen dangers. These frightening experiences taught me that nothing is certain, and my safety should always come first. Sometime after the incident, I couldn't erase the feeling of panic when thinking about what I had gone through. The fear I felt wasn't just about being threatened in that house, but also the anxiety that everything could happen again, anywhere, when I placed my trust in services like Airbnb. Even though I had left the city and found a new place to stay, I couldn't fully escape the haunting memories of the event. One news report made me feel even more uneasy. Another couple had rented the house I had stayed in and experienced strange, uncomfortable sensations just like I had. After they left, the story of a young girl going missing added to my certainty that the house was far from normal. What I had witnessed, along with the disappearance of another guest, made me begin to doubt the safety of platforms like Airbnb. Although I was offered compensation and received an apology from Airbnb, the confusion and unease couldn't be erased. I wondered if what I had experienced was just the tip of the iceberg, and how many similar incidents occurred that were never disclosed. I knew I couldn't continue to take risks with places like that. While it may be tempting to be drawn in by affordable prices and appealing images on rental platforms, I realized that my safety is something that cannot be compromised. From that point on, I decided to stay away from Airbnb and instead opt for reputable hotels where I could feel secure about my safety and security.